Revenge Mangan's story opens in New York City, in a tiny tailoring shop squeezed between a laundromat and a nail salon. Mila Carter, 27, stood behind her cutting table when the bell above the door chimed. She already knew that sound. It wasn't a customer sound. It was family. Aria walked in first, shoulders high like a queen entering her palace. Diane followed behind with a smirk that never meant anything good. Mila wiped her hands on her apron slowly. She didn't panic. She just waited because with them the insult always came first. Aria leaned against the doorway like she owned the air. Her eyes swept across racks of unfinished gowns, thread spools and fabric bolts. "Look at you," she said with a nasty laugh. "Still buzzing around like a worker bee." Diane chuckled softly, the kind of laugh that cut without effort. "Honestly," she added, "this place is a shoebox. Useless." Mila's fingers stiffened, but her face stayed calm. Pain was something she'd learned to fold neatly, like fabric under a clean hem. Still the words landed hard. They always did. Not because she believed them but because they enjoyed saying them. Mila had built that shop with savings and exhaustion. She had sewn wedding dresses that made brides cry, suits that made job seekers stand taller, costumes that made shy children feel brave. She was proud of her craft. Her hands were her power. But in her family, pride belonged to Aria alone. Mila was the fixer, the helper, the backup plan. She worked quietly, stayed dependable, and asked for nothing. And that was exactly why they came. Not to support her, but to remind her that in their minds, she existed under Aria's shadow. Aria crossed the room and lifted a bolt of satin off Mila's cutting table with 2 fingers like it might contaminate her. "Be grateful," she said, voice dripping with entitlement. "I'm letting you sew for my performance." Mila's heart thumped once hard. Diane stepped closer and nodded. "You want to be useful for once. Make her something that matters." Aria smiled and suddenly ripped one of Mila's pattern pieces in half. Clean and careless. Like Mila's work was trash. Like Mila herself was air. Mila stared at the torn paper, breathing slow, controlling herself the way she controlled a thread that wanted to knot. Then Mila did something unexpected. She smiled. Only. Like a storm had finally chosen its direction. "It would be my honor," she said softly. "I'll make you the most stunning dress you've ever worn." Aria's eyes narrowed, suspicious of Mila's peaceful tone. Diane looked pleased, thinking she had put Mila back in her place. But Mila's mind was already moving. Every insult she had swallowed for years tightened into one sharp thought. "I can turn their contempt into thread." She picked up the torn pattern piece and smoothed it flat. The question in her chest was simple and sharp. Will I stay trapped forever, or will I finally use my power? After they left, Mila's shop went quiet in a way that felt loud. The last jingle of the bell faded like a warning. Mila stood in the middle of her workroom, staring at the ripped pattern. Paper shouldn't feel like a wound, but it did. She had drafted that design with care. Hours of measuring, sketching, and redrawing. Now it was torn like it never mattered. Mila pressed her palms on the table, as if she could press the insult out too. In tailoring, small mistakes become big disasters. A crooked seam becomes a crooked life. And Mila suddenly realized her family had been sewing her into a role she never chose. She switched on her old desk lamp. A warm cone of light fell over her scissors, chalk marks, and fabric. The shop felt like a stage now, and the only audience was truth. Mila rolled the satin between her fingers. It was expensive and beautiful, the kind of fabric Diane would brag about, the kind Aria would flaunt like proof she was special. And that's when Mila saw it clearly. They didn't hate her craft. They feared it. Because Mila's hands could build beauty from nothing. She had created something without them. That kind of independence made controlling people angry. Mila opened her sketchbook. "All right," she whispered to herself. "Let's create something unforgettable." Mila began drawing. Not safe designs, not polite designs. She drew a bodice shaped like armor. Strong, structured, untouchable. She sketched a neckline that framed Aria's collarbone like royalty. She planned a skirt that moved like a controlled wave, dramatic but disciplined. She added notes, reinforcement points, hidden supports, stress lines. Each pencil stroke felt like a rebuttal. She wasn't just designing a dress. She was reclaiming territory. Memories came rushing. Family dinners where Mila's achievements were ignored. Holidays where she fixed Aria's zipper while Aria insulted her speed. Diane always said, "You're lucky she includes you." Mila's jaw tightened. "We'll see," she muttered. The next morning reality returned. Her phone rang before she finished her coffee. "Hi, is this Carter Tailoring?" a voice asked. "I need a rush alteration." Another client wanted a custom dress. Life didn't pause for family cruelty. And weirdly, that steadiness helped Mila stay grounded. Fabric didn't care who mocked her. Thread didn't care who laughed. If she pulled it through the needle and kept going, it held. The city buzzed about the upcoming performance pageant. Posters appeared. Social media clips showed dancers rehearsing. Aria's face was everywhere. Smiling, glowing, confident. Meanwhile, Diane called Mila twice. Not to ask how she was, but to warn her. "Don't embarrass Aria," she said coldly. Late at night, when the shop finally emptied and the streets softened into traffic hum, Mila worked on the gown. She cut satin with long, steady strokes. She pinned and basted, removed, pinned again. She hand-stitched beadwork, each bead catching light like a small star. And while she sewed, a darker thought kept returning. Mila knew garments. She knew where a dress could become indestructible. And she knew where it could become vulnerable. One hidden stitch. One tension choice. One seam that would hold. Until sweat warmed the thread and adrenaline sharpened movement. Mila paused, staring at the inner seam. Should I do it? She wondered. Should I let the spotlight teach her what I've been learning in the dark? But Mila wasn't reckless. She understood consequences. If the gown failed, Diane would blame Mila. Aria would scream incompetence. The world wouldn't know the history. They would only see a worker bee who couldn't do her job. Mila's craft, her livelihood, would be the one on trial. So Mila didn't decide yet. She prepared. She reinforced most seams like a fortress. She added backup support where it mattered. But deep inside, hidden and invisible, she left one seam as a choice. A decision waiting. Revenge wasn't always loud. Sometimes it was quiet power sitting patiently, like scissors resting closed. Mila exhaled slowly and whispered, "Not yet." She needed timing. And she needed truth. 3 days before the performance, the fitting happened in a rented dressing room that smelled like perfume, hairspray, and expensive impatience. Stylists rushed by without looking at Mila. Assistants carried racks of costumes like holy objects. Diane stood by the mirror with her phone ready, prepared to record Aria's greatness. Mila arrived early as she always did, carrying the garment bag like it contained more than fabric. In a way it did. It held Mila's dignity. Aria arrived late with sunglasses on indoors. She didn't greet Mila. She greeted her reflection. "Let's see," Aria said loudly. "If the worker bee can make something fit for a palace." Aria stepped behind the divider to change. Mila listened to satin whisper over skin. Then she heard Aria inhale, sharp and surprised, the sound people make when something is better than they expected. Aria stepped out, and the room went still. The gown caught light like moon on water. The bodice fit perfectly, sleek and powerful. The beadwork scattered tiny sparks down Aria's waistline. The skirt fell in dramatic folds that promised movement, not chaos. For half a second Aria looked genuinely impressed. "Wow," she whispered. Then she recovered. Ego rushed in like armor. "It's stunning," she said. "I mean, it's good for you." Diane stepped closer, eyes wide, then quickly narrowed. "It's fine," she said sharply. "Don't get carried away." Mila didn't argue. She crouched to check the hem, adjusting the fall of the skirt. Sewing was intimate work. You stood close enough to hear someone's breathing change. Close enough to notice fear hiding under arrogance. And Aria had fear. Not dramatic, not obvious, but real. Her fingers flexed again and again as she watched herself. Make it more dramatic, Aria demanded. I want the judges to remember me. Then her voice softened into dangerous sweetness. And I want you to remember who you're sewing for. Mila adjusted the neckline, feeling fabric tension under her fingertips. She could reinforce the inner fastening easily. Triple stitch it. Or leave it honest. Strong enough for rehearsal, fragile under pressure. Aria's eyes narrowed. You look calm, she said. Don't get ideas. This is my spotlight. Mila met Aria's eyes in the mirror and smiled. It's your spotlight, Mila agreed quietly. I'm just making sure you don't trip. Aria smirked, but it looked forced. Good, she said. Because if anything goes wrong, everyone will know it's your fault. Mila stood and stepped back. Aria looked like a queen, Diane's favorite kind of queen. But Mila couldn't ignore the truth. Aria's shine depended on hands she had spent years belittling. Before leaving, Aria turned casually. You'll be backstage on performance night, right? In case something needs fixing. Mila repeated softly. In case. Aria leaned close. Be grateful, she whispered. I'm letting you be part of something important. Back in the shop, time blurred into steam, thread, and quiet resolve. Aria's world was bright studios and loud music. Mila's world was the steady hum of her sewing machine and the whisper of fabric under her hands. Mila treated the gown like it was alive. She added a hidden underlayer to keep the skirt flowing. She reinforced side seams for movement strain. She stitched a backup clasp into the lining, invisible unless someone knew exactly where to feel. As she worked, the gown became symbolic. The outer layer was Aria's image, shiny and admired. The underlayer was Mila's labor, quiet and essential. The lining, the part touching skin, felt like Mila's history with her sister. Unseen, unpraised, carrying everything. Diane visited once without warning. She didn't greet Mila. She inspected like a boss checking an employee. Her fingers ran over beadwork, and for a moment Mila thought she saw awe. But Diane's face tightened quickly, like she'd been impressed by accident. Well, Diane said, at least you didn't ruin it. Mila didn't look up. Diane paced the shop, scanning shelves like she searched for failure. Then she spoke softer, almost nostalgic. You know, she said, Aria has what you don't. She's made for this. She's always been special. Mila set down her needle slowly. Special, she repeated, tasting the word like something stale. Diane nodded proudly. She reminds me of myself, she admitted. Same presence. Same ambition. People listen when she speaks. Then Diane gestured around the shop as if it were a consolation prize. And you, Diane said. You're good with your hands. That's your place. Be realistic. Mila felt something settle inside her like dust. Diane loved Aria because Aria mirrored Diane. Mila wasn't less. She simply wasn't the mirror Diane wanted. After Diane left, Mila stood in the center of her shop and imagined a future without their approval. She pictured her own showcase, her designs under clean lights, strangers praising her because it was deserved. Then a second image flashed, Aria on stage, gown glittering, judges leaning forward, audience captivated. Then one wrong spin, one tug, panic cracking her smile. In that moment Mila wasn't cheering. She wasn't crying. She was finally seen. Mila's hands hovered over the inner seam, the one place where a tiny decision could change everything. She could anchor it with reinforcement tape and make it immortal. Or leave it honest, beautiful but not foolproof. Mila stared at it for a long time. Then she surprised herself. She reinforced it partly. She added the backup clasp, the emergency safety net, but she refused to overbuild perfection. Mila decided something else instead. A boundary. If Aria wanted flawless work, she could earn it with respect. If she wanted Mila's labor, she could stop treating Mila like a joke. And if she refused? Well, consequences were sometimes the only language arrogant people understood. Performance day arrived with chaos thick in the air. The hall buzzed with stylists, contestants, stagehands, cameras, parents. Bright lights baked the backstage corridors. Music thumped through the walls like a heartbeat that wasn't Mila's. Mila arrived early, carrying her emergency kit like a medic. Needles, bread, safety pins, extra class. As she stepped backstage, she felt that familiar sensation, becoming invisible. People saw her hands and tools. They didn't see her. Diane walked the room praising Aria loudly. "She's got this in the bag," Diane bragged. "Born for the crown." She said it like fact, like sunrise. Like Mila was only shadow. Aria stood by the mirror, makeup flawless, posture perfect, but her fingers flexed again. Nervous. When Aria saw Mila, she didn't smile. She nodded like a manager acknowledging an employee. "You're here," Aria said. "Good. If anything feels off, you fix it." Mila glanced at the gown hanging nearby, glittering like it was made of applause. "It won't fail," Mila said. That was true, depending on what Aria meant by fail. Aria stepped closer and lowered her voice. "Don't look proud," she whispered. "People might think you matter." Mila's chest tightened, but not with pain this time. With clarity. "People already know," Mila replied softly. "They just don't know my name." Aria's eyes narrowed. She hated that. Not because it was rude, but because it was true. Before she could strike back, the stage manager called her number. The moment snapped shut. Diane swooped in, adjusting Aria's shoulders like crowning her early. "You're going to shine," Diane whispered, kissing her cheek. Then Diane added without looking at Mila. "And you stay out of the way. Don't distract her." Mila swallowed. Stay out of the way. Family motto. The sentence that had shaped her life like a pattern shapes fabric. The curtain trembled as the music shifted. Contestants lined up. Aria took a deep breath, chin lifted, smile practiced. She looked at the mirror one last time like she was checking if she still existed. Then she stepped forward. As she passed Mila, her hand brushed Mila's arm. Accidental maybe, but cold. Aria was scared. Mila's question returned, heavy and unavoidable. "If the dress starts slipping, will I save her?" Aria walked on stage like she owned the building. The crowd cheered. The judges leaned forward. The gown caught the spotlight like fireflies trapped in satin. Mila watched from the wings, her emergency kit ready. Aria's confidence grew with every step. She turned, posed, smiled at the judges like she was blessing them with her presence. Diane stood in the audience filming, whispering, "That's my daughter." Mila's stomach tightened. Then Aria began her performance routine. The part with fast turns, sharp movements, dramatic dips. Mila watched the gown closely. The skirt flowed beautifully. The bodice held. Aria looked magnificent. For a moment Mila thought maybe the night would pass peacefully. Then Aria spun too hard. Harder than rehearsal. A bead caught light, and Mila's trained eye saw it. Tiny strain. One seam tugged. Just slightly. Mila's pulse kicked. Aria moved into the next sequence. Faster, sharper, fueled by applause. Mila could see sweat gathering at Aria's hairline. The inner seam, the seam Mila had left honest, tugged again. And this time there was a faint sound only a tailor would notice. A tiny snap like thread giving up. Aria's smile flickered. She adjusted her posture subtly, trying to keep the audience unaware. Mila took one step forward then stopped. "If she signals me, I'll help," Mila told herself. "I'm not cruel." But Aria didn't signal. She didn't even look backstage. She kept going stubbornly, pride guiding her. Diane's voice rose from the crowd, loud and confident. "Yes, that's it." Mila clenched her jaw. The seam tugged again. Closer now. Dangerous. Aria reached the final dramatic pose. Arms lifted, head tilted back like she was receiving worship. The crowd gasped in admiration. Then, the bodice shifted. Not fully, not scandalously, but enough. Enough for Aria to feel it. Panic flashed across her face like lightning. Her hand twitched toward her chest, then stopped. She forced her smile wide. The judges noticed something, leaning in with narrowed eyes. Aria tried to finish strong, but she lost balance slightly. Not a full fall but a stumble. The audience murmured. Aria recovered quickly, but her confidence cracked. Mila saw it clearly. Aria had finally met vulnerability under a spotlight. And the worst part, Aria couldn't blame anyone yet. Not publicly. She had to smile through it. Mila stood still, calm, watching consequences do their quiet work. As the music ended, applause still came, but it wasn't as thunderous as Aria expected. Aria bowed stiffly, eyes wild. Then she rushed off stage with her assistants chasing her. The moment she entered backstage, she exploded. "What did you do?" Aria hissed, yanking at the gown. Mila's voice stayed calm. "Nothing," Mila said. "You moved harder than rehearsals." Aria's lips trembled. "Fix it," she snapped. Diane stormed in seconds later, face red, eyes sharp. "Mila!" Diane barked. "What happened out there?" Mila opened her kit quietly. "The seam strained," she said. Diane waved her hand violently. "Don't make excuses. You had one job." Mila looked Diane in the eye for the first time in years. "And I did it," Mila said. "It didn't rip. Held. It just reminded her she's human." Aria stared at Mila like she had never seen her before. "Are you trying to ruin me?" Aria whispered, voice shaking. Mila's hands worked quickly. Pinning, tightening, reinforcing with clean precision. "No," Mila replied. "I'm trying to protect what matters." Diane scoffed. "What matters is Aria's crown," Diane snapped. "Everything else is irrelevant." Mila paused mid-stitch and turned slowly. "That's the problem," Mila said softly. Diane blinked, offended. "Excuse me." Mila met her eyes steadily. "You don't love Aria," Mila continued. "You love yourself inside her." Diane's mouth opened, but no words came. Aria's face tightened. "Stop acting like a victim," Aria snapped. Mila didn't raise her voice. "I'm not a victim," she said. "I'm the one who keeps saving you." Mila finished reinforcing the gown cleanly. Then she stepped back. "There," she said. "It will hold for the final walk." Aria swallowed. "You better be right," she hissed. Mila nodded. "I am." Diane leaned closer to Mila, voice low like poison. "After tonight," Diane whispered, "don't get any ideas. You're still just the worker bee." Mila smiled lightly. "I used to think that word was an insult," Mila said. Diane frowned. "It is." Mila shook her head. "No," Mila said. "Bees build. Bees work. Bees make sweetness from nothing." She looked at Aria. "But even bees know when to leave a bad hive." Aria's eyes widened. Diane stiffened. "Don't be dramatic," Diane snapped. Mila zipped her kit. "I'm not being dramatic," Mila said. "I'm being honest." Aria returned to stage for the final segment. The gown held this time, reinforced properly now. She smiled, but the shine wasn't the same. Something inside her had shifted. She understood for the first time that her glory depended on hands she mocked. Diane filmed again, but her smile looked tense. Mila stayed backstage, watching quietly. And as the night ended, Mila felt something she hadn't felt in years. Freedom beginning. Not because Aria had suffered, but because Mila had finally seen her own power clearly. It wasn't revenge through destruction. It was revenge through clarity. Mila had held a choice in her hands, and she had chosen herself. When the show ended, Aria walked backstage, eyes darting. "You," she said to Mila, voice low. "Come with us." Mila didn't move. "No," she said. Aria blinked. Diane's head snapped around. "What did you say?" Diane demanded. Mila repeated calmly. "No," the word dropped like a heavy needle. "Don't start this," Diane warned. Mila folded her arms gently. "I'm not starting," Mila said. "I'm ending." Aria scoffed. You think you're important now? Mila nodded slowly. I am important, Mila said. To myself. Diane's face twisted in disbelief. After everything we've done for you, Diane cried. Mila almost laughed. Everything you've done, Mila echoed. You mean everything you've taken? Silence hit hard. Aria stepped forward. You owe me, she hissed. Mila's eyes stayed steady. No, Mila answered. You owe me respect. And you've never paid. Diane slammed her phone down. You're ungrateful. Later that night, Diane forced a family dinner. Her way of controlling stories. In a fancy restaurant near Midtown, Diane told the waiter loudly, My daughter Aria is the star performer tonight. Aria basked in attention, but her smile looked shaky. Mila sat across from them, quiet, watching. Diane raised her glass. To Aria's crown, she announced. Mila didn't lift hers. Diane noticed immediately. What's wrong with you? Diane snapped. Mila set her glass down. Nothing, Mila said. I'm just tired. Diane scoffed. Tired? You barely work compared to your sister. Mila turned her head slowly. Barely work, she repeated. Aria laughed weakly. She's emotional because she's jealous, Aria said. Mila looked straight at her. No, Mila replied. I'm emotional because I'm awake. The table went quiet. Diane leaned forward, eyes hard. Don't embarrass Aria, she hissed. Mila nodded lightly. I won't, Mila said. But I also won't keep humiliating myself so you can feel powerful. Diane's jaw tightened. So what? You want praise now? Diane mocked. Mila's voice stayed calm. No, Mila said. I want fairness. Aria rolled her eyes. Fairness, she repeated. Life isn't fair. Mila smiled thinly. Then stop stealing my fairness, Mila said. Diane slammed her hand on the table. You think your little shop matters? Diane snapped. Mila leaned back and answered gently. It matters more than you know. Aria scoffed. You're just mad because you'll never be like me. Mila's eyes didn't blink. I'm not trying to be like you, Mila said quietly. That's the whole point. Diane pointed at Mila. You exist because we allowed you, Diane spat. Mila nodded slowly. That's what you told yourself, Mila said. But I existed before your permission. Diane's face flushed. Aria looked between them, uneasy. Mila took a breath and spoke clearly. I've been paying family bills for years, Mila said. Fixing your mistakes. Covering debts. Being your emergency rope. Diane laughed loudly. Fake. Lies, Diane said. Mila opened her phone, calm. Want receipts? Mila asked. Diane's smile froze. Aria leaned closer. What are you doing? Aria whispered. Mila looked at her. Showing you both what you've always refused to see, Mila said. She slid the screen across the table. Bank transfers, payment logs, rent support, credit card balances covered. Aria's mouth parted. Diane's eyes darted. You did all this? Aria asked quietly. Mila nodded. And you still called me useless? Diane snatched the phone. This means nothing, she snapped. Mila didn't flinch. It means I'm not small, Mila replied. Aria's face changed, fear and anger mixing. You're trying to make me look bad, Aria said. Mila shook her head. No, Mila said. You made you look bad. I just stopped hiding it. Diane's voice rose. You're selfish, she shouted. Mila smiled sadly. Selfish, Mila repeated. I spent my life being selfless for you. Diane leaned forward. You'll regret this, she threatened. Mila's eyes stayed soft but strong. I already regretted it, Mila said. Every year I stayed quiet. Aria slammed her palm down. So what now? Aria demanded. Mila stood slowly. Now I leave, Mila said. And I take my labor with me. Diane's face twisted. You can't. Mila nodded. I can. Outside the restaurant, cold city air hit Mila's face like freedom. Aria ran after her. heels clicking fast. Mila, Aria called. Mila turned. Aria's voice lowered. You're really going to do this? She asked. Mila nodded. Yes. Aria swallowed. But I need you, Aria admitted, almost hating the words. Mila watched her sister carefully. For the first time Aria looked younger. Oh sure. You don't need me, Mila said. You need control. Aria's eyes tightened. I never meant, Aria began. Mila cut her off gently. You did mean it, Mila said. Because you never stopped. Aria's voice shook. Mom made it like this. Mila nodded. Yes, Mila said. And you enjoyed it. Aria flinched like slapped. Mila stepped closer. I'm not here to punish you, Mila said. I'm here to protect myself. Aria whispered. So you're done with us? Mila answered clearly. I'm done being your worker bee. Diane appeared behind Aria, furious. Get in the car. Diane snapped at Aria, then pointed at Mila. Don't think you're winning, Diane hissed. Mila didn't argue. She simply walked away. In the days that followed, Mila did something bold. She removed Aria and Diane from her financial life completely. She cancelled shared payments, cut access, closed the silent pipelines that had fed them for years. Diane called and screamed. Aria left voice notes full of blame. Mila listened once, then deleted them. Instead, she focused on her shop. For the first time, she worked without dread hanging over her. She posted her designs online under her own name, not Aria's sister, not family helper, just Mila. Customers began to notice. Orders increased. People sent messages. Your work is beautiful. Mila cried quietly in her shop, not from pain but from release. 2 weeks later, a fashion coordinator entered Mila's shop. Are you Mila Carter? The woman asked. Mila nodded, confused. The coordinator smiled. I saw your design online, she said. The gown you made for that performance. People are talking about it. Mila blinked. They are, she asked softly. The woman nodded. Yes, she said. They want to know who designed it. Aria didn't tag you. But the dress was the star. Mila felt heat rise in her throat. She wanted to laugh and scream at the same time. The coordinator continued. There's a small designer showcase next month. We'd like you to present. Mila's hands trembled. Me, she whispered. The woman smiled. Yes, she said. You. Mila exhaled. After all those years of invisibility, the world was finally calling her name. That night Aria showed up at the shop alone. No Diane. No entourage. Just Aria, standing under the dim shop lights like she didn't belong there anymore. Mila didn't invite her in. Aria spoke first. I came to say. People are asking about the dress, Aria said. Mila nodded. I heard, Mila replied. Aria swallowed. I didn't give them your name, Aria admitted, eyes down. Mila's lips pressed into a small smile. Not amused, just tired. Of course you didn't, Mila said. Aria looked up fast. I can fix that, Aria said quickly. Mila shook her head. No, Mila replied. You can't fix years with one post. Aria's voice cracked. Then what do you want? Mila answered softly. Nothing from you. Aria froze. Mila continued. That's what freedom is. Aria whispered. Mom says you're bitter. Mila smiled gently. I'm not bitter, Mila said. I'm healed. Aria's face collapsed into quiet grief. For a long moment Aria just stood there. Then she said quietly, I didn't know it was that bad. Mila's eyes softened. You knew, Mila said. You just didn't care. Aria's shoulders dropped. I did care sometimes, Aria whispered. Mila tilted her head. Sometimes isn't enough, Mila said. Aria wiped her face quickly, embarrassed. Can I support you now? She asked. Mila paused. That question held a strange kind of honesty. Mila answered carefully. You can start by not competing with me, Mila said. And not using me. Aria nodded quickly. I can do that, she said. Mila studied her sister, then replied. Good. Aria stepped back toward the door. Congratulations, Aria whispered. For the showcase. Mila nodded. Thank you, she said. Aria hesitated, then left. The bell chimed softly like closure. The story ends with Mila standing alone in her shop, yet not lonely. The city outside still roared, but inside her space was calm. Mila pinned new sketches to her board. Bold designs, fearless cuts, gowns that didn't beg for approval. She looked at her hands and finally saw them the way she deserved. Not as tools for others, but as art in motion. Diane might never change. Aria might struggle to grow. But Mila didn't need their permission anymore. Her boundaries were stitched tight now. Her spine was reinforced like a perfect seam. She whispered to herself, smiling. Worker bee. Then she laughed softly. No, she locked up her shop and walked into the New York night like a woman who had finally chosen her own life.